everybody. My name is Bishop, and over here we have Jeff. So, we are going to talk today about man class. So, we have a group on Facebook. It's called the Neoteric Man. It's something that is very new, and it is something that is an adaptation of one of Jeff's longtime dreams and goals, which is to create this thing called man class. Jeff, can you tell us about man class and what was your reasoning behind it and your driving force in making this a reality?
Well, I'd say my driving force behind this kind of came from a period of rebuilding, restructuring, and reading a lot of different self-help books and whatnot. And one of the big ones that I came across was kind of a classic that was written back, I want to say in the 70s, called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And realizing it's like this book had a lot of good information behind it, but because of the area in which it was written in, there's a lot of things that I think were kind of wrong-headed now. But the overall, what the book was trying to teach is getting men out of this scarcity mindset and getting them out of the white knight syndrome, where there's so many guys that it's the typical like nice guy white knight, kind of the everything that I'm doing is there's a hidden quid pro quo behind it, and there's got to be like some sort of payoff, and really it's objectifying women and things like that, to where it's that whole like what you see, the women aren't sex vending machines that you put niceness coins into until like sex falls out. Getting men out of that mindset and teaching them to be able to reclaim their masculinity, and also kind of applying this would have been written before the law of attraction came out, but applying some of those principles and realizing that what's going to, like, as a man, what's going to get you to where you want to be is going to be, instead of constantly chasing after things, chasing after women, chasing after, the perfect career, perfect opportunities or whatnot. It all comes down to, okay, well, what are you doing to better yourself in order to allow these things to come find you? So, and with that, they said they had, after this book was written, and to this day I believe they still have No More Mr. Nice Guy meetups. But the areas where I felt that the book went wrong are, one, it has a very anti-feminist streak to it. And we're living in the 21st century, guys. You're either on the right side of history or you're on the wrong side of history. So let's be on the right side of history as far as this goes. It's like you can break those cycles. You can get away from being a white knight, from being the quintessential nice guy, to being a doormat, and still support progressive movements like feminism and things like that, and be on the right side of history. And then the other thing that I think that it didn't really touch base on too much is mental illness. So being able to start a place where people can talk openly and be vulnerable about their struggles with mental illness, and being able to, when we can talk till we're blue in the face about setting goals and putting those things in action or whatnot. But somebody who's been dealing with severe depression, how are they, how are you going to say, okay, well, what are the 3 goals you want to work on? It's how do we put them in that kind of how do you get to that sort of a mind frame when just getting out of bed in the morning takes all the energy that you have, and just getting to that point to where we got to, help men be able to find that spark, find that fire, and give them something to be passionate about. And forget where it was that I read, where it says something about trying to find your passions, trying to find your calling. And it says, if you don't know what your passion is, then your passion right now should be finding your passion.
Very valid words, man.
But in general, it's the big thing is being able to provide a safe place where, well, and with this, like, I don't want to be exclusionary, because while we are focused mostly on like men or anybody that would identify as male, I want to say with what I'm trying to do, I'm like, I'm not going to close that door to anyone. Like the first man class that we had, it's like we had we had women that were there. A lot of them were they were there just because they wanted to be able to be better, more supportive towards the men in their lives and things like that. So I want to say that door is always open, but the problem there is that we want to say, especially like I'm kind of like in that weird gap to where they don't know if you're like Gen X or millennial. But really, we were kind of still raised, with that era and with the idea of, you got to man up, you got to rub some dirt in it.
Grow a thick skin.
Yeah, grow a thick skin, grow some balls. And men don't cry, men don't talk about their issues. And this is why we have the era that we have where it's so many broken men, and being able to provide that safe space to where we can take anybody in and be able to be like, this is your safe space to be able to, if you're willing to show some accountability. That's the important part with this. Want to say you can't save anybody that's not willing to save themselves, but anybody that's willing to show a little bit of accountability and be like, you know what, now's the time, I'm ready to make the change. It's being able to provide that circle of support, that unjudgmental space to where somebody can be able to just be completely honest and open and pour out all of that hurt and all of that bullshit, and know that not only are they going to be accepted not only is this a place where they'll be accepted for doing that, but it is encouraged for you to do that. It is we not only accept your vulnerability, we embrace that. It's like, come, be one, join the tribe, be vulnerable, connect, and feel like you belong somewhere.
Now, a little background on me. My name is Bishop. I am a used car salesman of all things. I was married for 10 years. I got separated in 2017, divorced in 2018. I'm now a single dad, trying to sell cars during this lovely time of Corona. But I've been a blogger for a very long time, and I run a blog called Schrödinger Smile. It's actually SchrödingerSmile.com if you want to take a look at that. I also am on a podcast called The Art of Car Buying, which is basically the civilian's guide to the automobile industry and how not to get screwed at the used car lot. So production and media is something that I'm newer to, but not something that I'm unfamiliar with, and blogging I've been doing for longer than I care to admit. You can't always find the things I had. I've taken some of my stuff down that was older and more comical related. But one thing I've been fairly good at is documenting my triumphs, my struggles, my successes, my failures along this journey of becoming a single dad and a little bit of the time period beforehand. So that's a little bit background on me. Just like Jeff, I'm a reader. I am an open-minded individual who is always down to learn something new and to look at different viewpoints. Even if at the end I can't share that viewpoint, I'm always willing to listen to it and see what I can take away from it. Jeff, can you give us a little bit of background on you?
So my background, well, see, you and I have kind of like walked a lot of parallels in life, and I think that's,
a crazy amount of parallels.
One of the reasons why we connected during this, time of, the Corona and became such good friends. So with me, it was, I was married for 13 years. Split actually on New Year's Day 2017.
So a couple months before me.
So yeah, and want to say not well, needless to say, it's like it's all over and done with, and the divorce, the paperwork was probably finalized around the same time that yours was. So, but with that, it was, and I'm not going to pretend like I was an angel. It's like a lot of reasons why things went the way that they were is because I was not always the most emotionally intelligent person. And a lot of that was, I kind of got into this mode where I was just very like logic-oriented, very logic-based person. Like with all of my education and everything, it was, okay, I don't care about what the emotional aspect is to all of this. Like, what are the numbers? Where is the logic behind this? And I kind of applied that a little bit to my marriage and how things were going there. And so, as things progressed with the marriage, the more it's like my wife kind of was drifting away from me and seeking that emotional connection, that emotional validation elsewhere. And want to say kind of the death toll really was when we decided to open up the marriage. And with that, once again, it was because I was in such like a logic driven mode that when it came to emotions, I didn't know how to handle them. And, I was prone to have complete and total emotional breakdowns because I would just bottle everything up and not know how to release these things, not know how to be vulnerable, not know how to, express what I was actually feeling. Everything had to be strictly from a, logical standpoint. So I want to say that decision to go into that like open relationship, polyamory world and whatnot was entirely one that was like logically based. It was a, we're progressive 21st century individuals. It's like, this makes sense. This is the, especially since we were young, dumb, and Mormon when we got married, this is the next logical progression. This allows us to be able to maintain the marriage and be able to explore this world of like sexuality and sensuality that we weren't able to explore when we were younger.
And he's not kidding about parallels. I literally went through the same thing. Born and raised LDS, married young and Mormon. Towards the later years of the marriage, we did experiment with an open marriage and a polyamorous relationship style. And towards the end of it, it didn't save anything.
Well, for me, it wound up making things a lot worse.
Oh, yeah.
So, and this is, for the sake of just being entirely like open and vulnerable. There's things that I'm going to go ahead and open up and talk about now that I normally don't open up and talk about with most people. So I want to say the first misstep there was going into this. We didn't really do the research as to, because I know there's a lot of people out there that practice ethical non-monogamy and things like that, and they probably went through the gauntlet and came out on the other side a lot better than the experiences that I had. So we didn't have that going off. So like right out of the gate, there were missteps. It's like part of that is it's like we had people that we, they were just friends that were like always hanging out with us and whatnot, but we'd be hanging out, drinking would be involved, sometimes other substances would get involved, and things would start getting a little bit inappropriate. So this was one of the angles that my ex-wife was talking about. She's like, when we're in these kind of situations, we should be able to have the freedom to allow those situations to play out and be able to be like, okay, well, we there's people in our lives that we know there's like a sexual tension there, and that's something that I think we should be willing to explore. So the problem there was that it was totally okay for her to explore that. It wasn't okay for me to explore that at all.
I didn't have a similar experience in that aspect, but on my end, there was a breakdown of honesty and communication. And without honesty and communication, you can't have a relationship based in that lifestyle that works. It'll destroy you. It really will. So yeah, none of us won. We learned a lot. We hurt a lot. And through that hurt and those lessons, we have a lot to share, and not just on the subject of polyamory and failed marriages. So we have both taken a lot from our personal lives, and we've turned it into something that's hopefully beneficial and educational for other people who wish to get out of this, rock bottom situation and to lift themselves up. Like Jeff was saying earlier, we're here to help those who want to help themselves. We're willing to offer insight and tools and experiences and stories of overcoming different situations to help you further your goals. And we even have homework assignments on some things. Fun times, right, Jeff?
Yeah. Well, and as far as the rest of my story, well, we can probably go into the rest of the story and how, things concluded at a later time. But yeah, I want to say it was ultimately me coming to where I'm at now. It was because I made a lot of missteps and had to do that dirty hitting rock bottom, that dealing with depression, dealing with suicide attempts and things like that. And eventually having to get to a point of being like, you know what? Like, I'm still here for a reason. Let's turn it around. It's like, and, has it been like a perfect process from there. It's like, no, it hasn't been. You're not just gonna like wake up one day and then it's just gonna be like, shooting off into space. It's a 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So, but with that, I want to say, even with all the challenges that we're being faced with, in the world of COVID and everything, it's still where I'm at now versus where I was a couple of years ago. It's night and day.
I always like to say when I hit rock bottom, I bounced. I didn't bounce back. I bounced a couple times on the rock bottom. It's been an up and down situation. Mostly up at this point in my life, but did you kind of experience the same?
Oh, most definitely. Because, well, and I want to say I have a good friend who explained it to me like this. We're all familiar with the different stages of grief. But the way that it's usually described to us, they make it sound like it's such a linear process. It's, first there's going to be the denial stage, then the anger, then depression, bargaining, and then eventually acceptance. And then at that point, you should be done with the journey. It doesn't work that way. And well, I'd say without a visual representation, there's another way that it was described to me that I think makes better sense, where they call it the ball in the box analogy. When the trauma first happens, it's like your head is like this box, and that trauma is a ball that pretty much fills that entire box. And as you process and as you heal, that ball gets smaller and smaller. But every now and again, as things are rattling around, that ball is going to hit the corners of the box. And now you have these feelings of anger from that trauma that are resurfacing, or you have these feelings of depression, and so on and so forth. And healing is not a linear process, and you just have to be able to learn to accept these feelings when they come, give them their due, feel what needs to be felt, and then send them on their way.
That is a really good analogy. One thing to contemplate when we both say that we kind of bounced when we hit rock bottom, take away this from it. If we bounced, it meant that we got back up, and we fell, but we got back up again. We didn't let what we were dealing with defeat us, which is a huge thing. I mean, I know I was destroyed for a long time, and I know you were too.
Oh, yeah.
And to a point, we're still dealing with some of the fallout from those relationships and understanding some of the things that happened and analyzing and growing from it. So that is a little bit about us. And then, Jeff, you do have a couple skill sets. Do you care to mention those?
Oh, yeah. And part of this is one of the jokes that I make is, when we really dig into it, it's there is a hereditary aspect to it. Everyone in my family does have certain kind of innate gifts. I call it the weirdness. I got it from my mom. She got it from her mom, and so on and so forth. But with that being in that box of logic for the longest time, it was these were things that I found ways to kind of be able to negate and be like, well, these are anything that I can do. It's something that somebody else can. It's something that somebody else can do. It's evolutionary traits that we just put on the back burner because we don't need to use that that portion of our brain in a modern society to where we're not constantly dealing with predators and imminent threats on the horizon. And I think there's an element of truth to that, but in general, getting back in touch with that spiritual side was a huge part of the healing process. And there were things that I learned how to do in the process. So now it's currently one of the jobs that I do on the side is I work as a fortune teller. And the interesting thing with that is when I explain what it is that I do, and I'll tell people, it's like my average reading is anywhere from about 2.5 to 3 hours. And I tell them I charge $100 for the reading. And people tell me, and you get all the time, like $100 for a reading. It's like, that's crazy. I'd never pay that much for the reading. But anybody that has agreed to pay that price, it's like almost none of them have only paid the $100. It's they go through the process and they're like, no, It's like, yeah, people might think that $100 is crazy for a reading, but what you do, it's like, this is worth so much more than what you're charging.
This I can vouch for. Jeff has done one of those readings with me, and it was spot on. And I learned a lot of things I didn't know before. Now, I'm what you would call a skeptic believer. I believe in a lot of the stuff, but I'm also skeptic of it, and I'm open to other answers being a possibility for the reason why things are the way they are. So I think that's kind of a beautiful spot to be in because I can look at it from different angles. But I can say when it comes to Jeff and his readings that I am a believer.
I appreciate that, man.
You're welcome, brother. All right, guys. So we have the group on Facebook. We're going to be including some links. But we're going to go over now what we kind of went over on the first meeting of Man Class. The funny thing about this was it was a few nights before the first meeting of Man Class. You were over here with one of our mutual friends.
Yeah.
And I shared something I had written with Jeff and with our other friend. She actually read it out loud. And it was a letter entitled Dear Bishop. Jeff, can you give me some of your feelings on that letter? You've heard it twice now.
So with that, I believe the term that you used is being able to make a complete, honest, fearless moral inventory. But the whole process is sitting down and like writing a letter to yourself, kind of replaying, going through like all of the major hurt that's happened in your life and how you chose to react to it. I mean, in the end, we can't always control what happens to us, but we always have a choice as to how we're going to choose to react to it. And if we are going to, in the face of that trauma, bury it and allow what in psychology they call a schema to develop, to where we have like this hidden programming that when a trigger is accidentally hit, we wind up going into these episodes to where we're behaving completely out of character and not entirely aware of, well, the way that it plays out is once one of those triggers is hit, we're not even aware that it's there. Then we're like, hey guys, sorry, I don't know why I had that like freak out moment there. That was completely out of character. And being able to get out of, we have to make a decision at some point to be able to address those traumas and be able to do that fearless inventory and be able to say, looking back at it, this is what happened. This is where, these are all the points in which I was hurt or I was hurting. This is how I chose, the way that you did it was looking at it like you're taking the stance of a third party.
Exactly.
Looking at,
Mine was written in a third person view.
It's written in the third person, but it's like it's written as yourself to yourself, being able to, and this is a practice that I've seen used in different mindfulness exercises, to where it's being able to kind of pull yourself away from that hurt and away from the situation, look at it as if you were a third,
a third party.
Third party, and be able to say, what happened there? How did you choose to react to it? Why did you choose to react to it? You can't change what happened back then, but you can make a conscious decision now to say, this is what happened back then. This is how I chose to react to it. And if I'm ever faced with that kind of a situation again, I'm going to be able to realize this is what's going on. And I can say, moving forward, if I'm ever faced with that same situation again, this is how I'm going to respond to it going forward. It's like, and being able to just go through everything that's happened in your life and be able to take that full account. And once again, it comes back to the accountability. It's saying, these cycles are going to stop. I'm going to stop these cycles. And if I can become cognizant that this is what's going on in the past, I know this is how I behaved, but moving forward, this is what how I'm going to choose to react to this situation moving forward.
Now, this letter, it was written in December of 2017, and it was very emotional, and it's a very open and honest letter. So here's the thing about this letter. Mine, I'm going to read it in a second video. I'm going to include a link to it in this video, and then I'll include a secondary video where I read it, so you can either read it yourself or you can listen to me reading it. It was very open, it was very honest, it was very direct. Mine started in the 1990s, so it was almost a life story, if you will. But I had that much baggage to unpack that I needed to talk to myself about, and I had been holding it in. And my dam broke, and I needed to let it out. And this was one of the most beautiful, gut-wrenching, releasing ways to do it. I healed a lot so much just by letting it out there and writing it out. Now, my version of writing was typing. This is on the internet. Some people needed to use pen and paper. It doesn't matter which way you do it as long as you do it and you are honest with yourself. The real key to this is, like Jeff was saying, it's a kind of a fearless moral inventory, like they like to say in some of the, like 12-step programs. In this case, it's just a fearless conversation with yourself, like, hey, look, this shit happened, this went down, this is how we reacted, here's what we need to do. And that's kind of the gist of it. My letter is there as a suggestion and an example. It's not a template. You can make it your own, but it is something that is amazing to do for yourself. So at the first man class that we had, it was a challenge that was issued to everybody in attendance who wanted to write one of these letters. You don't have to share it with other people. You don't have to put it on the internet. But as Jeff was just telling me, he's going to finish up his letter, and he's also going to read his in a video.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the one thing I think about both of us, is if we can go through something and somebody else can benefit through that process of what we learned, what we took away, and if it helps them, then by all means, it made it a little bit easier for us to go through that, and it made it worthwhile. So guys, that is the letter to yourself. Now there's going to be another man class coming up on the last Monday of every month is the plan. Yep. So we're not trying to overdo this or overwhelm you, so when you get a homework assignment, you're going to have a month to do it. So this comes down to the matter of, is this something you want to do? Now, this video is going to be available in our Facebook group, on our Facebook page, and on YouTube, and I'm sure it'll get shared around, and we're totally okay with that. There's going to be an email address in which you can contact us at if you have questions. You're welcome to take a look at the group or the page. But like Jeff was saying before, the whole goal of this is to have somebody who's willing to work on themselves as well. One of my father's favorite sayings was, even negative attention is yet attention, and there's a lot of people that are simply attention-seeking and not looking to heal. We are looking for the people who are ready to stop the cycle, to break it, to move on, to become better people. Jeff, is there anything you'd like to add to this, sir?
No, I think we've pretty much covered all the bases, and I've probably rambled more than I should have. And
right on, guys. Well, I am Bishop. That is Jeff. And we will be seeing you again soon. Hopefully we'll see you around on the internets. I will be posting this video either tonight or tomorrow with links. And I will make the video of myself reading my letter, and Jeff's video should follow not long after. It has been a pleasure being here for you guys. We hope you've learned something, taken away something, grown, or at least gained a new idea or concept to ponder. And this is Bishop and Jeff saying we will see you all later.